Have you ever wondered what would have happened if the Straw Hats were reborn with all their memories? Would they be able to change all the bad things that have happened to them, or would it make their journey even worse? Well, before we answer that, let's start with Luffy. Being reborn with all of his memories, Luffy would be confused, but he would try to keep quiet about the situation. He would do this in order to relive his childhood in the same way, spending his time with Ace and Sabo. Of course, since he's Luffy, he would slip up now and then, but not enough to raise any suspicion. He'd still eat the Nika fruit even in this scenario, but Shanks wouldn't lose his arm saving him since Luffy would be smart enough to avoid the bandit. After some time, Luffy would even start training his Haki on his own and would single-handedly defeat the Blue Jam Pirates. In order to let Ace and Sabo live their life, he would let both of them go the same way they did in the main story, knowing that both of them would eventually end up with people who would care about them. Once he turned 17, Luffy would also leave the island himself and meet up with Kobe again on Alvida's boat. After dealing with Alvida, they'd head straight for Shellstown to pick up Zoro. Before they do that, I need to explain what happened to Zoro in this timeline, since his backstory is completely different now. Obviously, now that he's been reborn, Zoro's first thoughts were to start training as hard as he can. Due to everything he knows about swordsmanship, he easily defeated Kuina during their duels, and she actually had to catch up to him this time around. However, I still believe the two would become really good friends and make a promise to each other. With his future memories, Zoro might even be able to save Kuina from dying in this version, warning her about her accident beforehand. Afterwards, being by far the most skilled swordsman in the dojo, Zoro is gifted Wado Ichimonji by Kuina's father. Growing tired of his little village, Zoro took Kuina's father's advice and left the island in order to find stronger opponents. This young Zoro then spent years building up a reputation throughout the East Blue, and he became much more feared than before. Despite spending most of his time lost by a complete accident, he'd unintentionally wind up in Shellstown only days before Luffy's arrival. Zoro's battle with Axe Hand Morgan and his men didn't last more than a second. After the battle, nobody dared ask him to leave, and he spent the next few days lounging around waiting for Luffy. Soon, the duo would reunite at the bar. They'd both immediately celebrate meeting each other again before leaving the island together. On their way to Orangetown, they'd share stories with each other about their solo adventures, talking about the things they did differently. At Orangetown, Zoro would point out how this place looks familiar, but off at the same time. That's when they'd come across Nami bossing around Buggy and his crew, making them fix up all the damage they caused.